I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody. Back in 2019 I purchased this set of Camkong lithium-ion batteries for my Runme R2 action cam and DBPower D2 action cameras. These are essentially knockoffs of the SJ4000 style, which is also a knockoff of a GoPro. So, knockoff of a knockoff of a GoPro. I purchased the batteries that way I'd have additional batteries to have for these cameras. And to the right here are the original two batteries that came with respective cameras, and actually had them marked R2 and D2, that way I know which one is which. So the original batteries that came with the cameras, they're rated for 1050 milliamp hours, and the last time I tested them they seemed to actually do pretty close to that. These, which are rated for 1350 milliamp hours, last time I tested, they didn't quite do that much, but I think they actually did a little more than these. But I've noticed, at least last summer, I noticed these batteries, they didn't seem to have quite as much runtime as they used to, and actually they seem to have less runtime than these. I should also mention that these two batteries came with the little USB powered charger. How is that holding up? Well, not so well. It actually died on me. Well, it didn't actually die, it just the little indicator lights light up, but it doesn't charge up the batteries. So I ended up tearing it apart, which I think I did do a look inside of this thing in the previous video about these batteries. I did actually open the charger up and have a look inside. What I did is I took these little connectors, desoldered them from the circuit board, glued them back in, and I've essentially made me an adapter to where I can use my Opus charger to charge the batteries instead. And I'll demonstrate how it works here in a moment. But see, yeah, this is the bottom that came with this charger. Yeah, I always thought this was kind of a sketchy charger to begin with. I did use it to charge these as well as these batteries, and I mean it did okay, but I think what happened with this is I probably had some cold joints, solder joints on here, probably in the USB port or something in here, because you can move this thing around and little lights will flicker, which they will flicker between blue and red. Red would mean charging, and blue would mean fully charged or no battery inserted. So what we'll do is test these batteries out. I'm going to put these two side by side and these two side by side. And what I'm going to actually do is number these so that we'll know which is which. I'll call this one number 1. And call this one number 2. So there we are. And I'll swap these around, since the D2 battery is a little bit older than the R2 battery, since I got the DBPower camera a little bit before I got the Runme camera. So anyways, I'm going to pop in my adapter. The way this works is this will take place of 2 cell banks on the Opus charger. So I should mention these 4 battery packs are fully charged. I'm going to actually do a discharge on them and see what we get out of them at 1 amp. To sort of simulate the power draw of the camera. As you can see, it just pops in like that. And I'm going to go ahead and select these first two slots and change them over to discharge, because I got this battery over here charging up by itself. Okay, so we're going to start out by draining these two and see how they compare side by side. So if I pop these in here, you'll see they're sitting at 4.15 and 4.16 volts respectively. So they're sitting at about the same voltage, and we're going to discharge them at 1 amp. Excuse me, actually first let's do a quick test. Now I should mention these numbers are not going to be exactly accurate, because you also have not only the connections between the adapter, but you also have the connections between of course the battery and the adapter and the charger. Now look at this. Now of course this is milliohms. Now I should mention again, you do have two connections, so those connections can add resistance. But wow, look at this. The D2 battery has 285 milliohms. Now again, I'll mention again, this is not exactly accurate because we have two different connections, as well as the wiring between these connections and of course the internal connections on this adapter. But yeah, look at here, 528. I'm going to reseat these just to be sure. Swap them around just to see. Yeah. The Camkong cells, or the Camkong batteries, do seem to have noticeably more resistance in them. Now also, yeah, in addition to the two connections here, the connections between the charger and the adapter and the batteries, we also have the protection circuits in each of these. So we have little circuit boards in them that are there to help prevent the battery from being over discharged and overcharged, etc. So you also have that to add into the resistance. So we're going to pop these back in there. We'll go and do the discharge. Let's let it complete here. So yeah, this one definitely does seem to have more internal resistance. Okay, so now these are being, they each have a 1 amp drawn from them. 1 amp each. And we'll just see how this, look here, you can see here. Look how much the voltage on this one has sagged already. So the stock DBPower D2 battery with 1 amp on it is still at 4.11, and the Camkong is already down to 4.01. So that tells me right away that battery ain't doing so hot, ain't doing so well, and we're down to 3.95. This may not last very long. Now I should mention, now I will do a timed test. I'll just load a couple SD cards in each camera and load the batteries into them and just run them and see how they how long they last side by side. That ought to be interesting. So the black battery, the stock batteries that came with the cameras, when filming at 1080p 30 fps, I would usually get, I want to say, an hour and a half or so runtime. When these orange batteries, the Camkongs, when they were new, I would get close to 2 hours out of them. But now it seems like I get less than an hour. So performance has definitely deteriorated some. So we'll let this run and we'll see how these batteries do. And we will also test the other two as well. Look at this before I stop. Look, this one's already down to 3.66. Now I should mention, these cameras, they seem to consider a battery dead at like 3.6. So 1 amp is probably more than what these cameras pull, but they are pretty power thirsty. I can't say, because they do get pretty warm when they're running. But you can see, look here, 3.45. This ain't gonna last long. Meanwhile, the DBPower battery is still holding at a little over 4 volts. So yeah, again, we'll let this run and we'll continue when we're done with the discharge. Okay guys, so this is like only a couple more minutes in. There's our time. This 6 minutes. This one's already down to 3.05. It ain't gonna last long. But get this. The Camkong is actually heating up a bit. It's about 38 degrees Celsius. Or 90 degrees Fahrenheit for the Fahrenheit folks. Meanwhile, the DBPower pack is sitting at about 33. It is expected for these to warm up a little bit when you got a pretty good little load on them. But the Camkong, it's just heating right up. The thing is, I don't really think, I wouldn't see as 1 amp to be too unreasonable of a draw from these, because oh yeah, we're almost done with this one. 2.95. 2.8. Yeah, it's about it's about had it. As I was saying, I don't think 1 amp is too unreasonable of a current to pull from these, because that's like 1C. Oh yeah, that battery's getting pretty hot. And usually, yeah, it's about 40 to 41 degrees Celsius. And look at the rebound here on the voltage. Usually when these packs start to get hot like that under load, it's a telltale sign that the internal resistance is getting up there. That's the same way it is with my 18650s. I just retired a few cells because they were starting to. Well, I noticed that their performance was really getting poor. And when I put them on a discharge test on this Opus charger, they started to get warm or hot under discharge, and obviously telltale sign. And of course, do a resistance check. The resistance was like one cell was like 400 milliohms. So, now I should mention the rebound will be a little higher, because of course we do have. It is safe to say we'll have a little bit of voltage drop from the cell through the circuitry, the protection circuit, and also the wiring going between the connector and these terminals. But I did use pretty stout wiring. You may be able to see it there. Matter of fact, that wiring came off of a 4-pin CPU power connection on a power supply. I think that's probably I think it's probably 20 gauge. I'm not sure. I don't see it being too much of an issue for 1 amp draw tops. I mean, this is my opinion. I'd have to I'd have to really look up to be sure. Be sure, but yeah, look at this. It's already back up to 3.92 volts, and I'll be curious to see what this one jumps up to whenever it's done. But speaking of which, we're just down to 3.91 volts on this one. It's still discharging. So let's go ahead and cycle over to the milliamp hours. Yeah, 112 milliamp hours. That's terrible. That is pitiful. And the pack is cooling back off. Let's go ahead and pull it back out. Yeah, it didn't much like that. May as well go ahead and start the second one. Actually, take that back. I'm going to go ahead and just put this other battery in here and just see what it discharges to. The R2. Do the same thing. We'll pull an amp from it. DBPower battery is just very slightly warm. About 34 degrees C. And this battery here is about 27, 28 degrees Celsius. That's do it again. It's about 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, excuse me, that's 25 C. So 78, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly. It's about, I'd say about 75 here in the room. I just noticed something. Why did this one, go ahead and reseat it. Apparently the protection circuit on this cell is kicking it out. Let me let's try a different discharge rate. Let's do 700 milliamps. That's weird. I mean, they're identical battery packs. Not sure why this one's kicking out like that. All right, let's yeah, it definitely seems like it's the protection circuit having a fit. Let's try 500 milliamp discharge. Interesting. Yeah, because it's not pulling the voltage down too hard. That's weird. Apparently the protection circuit on this battery pack considers, and look, it's kicked out again. Okay, that's interesting because yeah, it's funny. The other one's just going right along just fine. You know what? We're not going to bother with this R2 pack. But that's interesting though. Even at 500 milliamps, the protection circuit is kicking it off. But yet the D2 pack, which is exactly identical, by the way, they're identical packs. Yeah, the D2 is still hanging in there. Now, I'm pretty well certain that the D2 battery pack does have protection. For example, this little bitty battery here, or what used to be a battery, this was one of the ones that came with those knockoff sports cams. And even though the battery, the cell inside, the LiPo cell inside was garbage, it does have a protection circuit. So I'm thinking if this little cheap battery would have protection in it, surely the D2 pack would have protection too. So what we'll do instead is we'll pop number 2 in here, the second Camkong battery, and we'll run a discharge on it. I'm sure it won't last long either, but we'll see. Maybe just one of the battery packs is going bad. So I'm pretty certain if I pull less current on a discharge cycle from the Camkong, I will get more capacity out of it. Which is why the camera would still run for 30 to 45 minutes. So I'd have to, the only way I could really test the amp draw of the camera would be to do what I think I had mentioned in a previous video. I'm going to eventually do it one day. Is I'm going to do a plug-in 18650 mod for these cameras using this little pack here. Just wiring a couple of wires and a fuse into the existing protection circuit inside this little box, and run that wire out to an external 18650 holder, like what powers my other cameras. And what I could do in that case is I could just simply hook an amp meter in series and see what the current draw of the camera is. Considering these batteries, or the cameras, these action cams, considering they run about 2 hours tops, maybe an hour and a half, and they stop running at about 3.6 volts. I'm going to guess these pull maybe about 300 milliamps. Something like that, which is why this pack will run in the camera, but not accept 500 milliamps of draw. Yeah, I understand why this one battery, isn't accepting that draw. Now, enough of the talking. Let's go ahead and look at what's going on here. You can see we're already down to 3.6. So similar, very similar performance out of this one. Now some of y'all might say, well, 1 amp is kind of 1 amp draw is kind of asking a lot, but I mean, you think about it. You look here, as I mentioned, not sure what the deal is with the protection in this pack, but you look here at the D2 pack, it's still going right along just fine. 3.81 volts, and we've been going for 19 minutes now. And we've already pulled about 300 milliamp hours out of this pack. So anyways, we'll let this run and I'll update you with the results. Okay, so the second Camkong battery fully discharged in just 8 minutes. Here we are 30 minutes in. The D2 battery is still going. and this one has already rebounded back up to 3.92 volts. This battery is still holding in at 3.72 volts with a 1 amp load on it, and we've pulled just about 500 milliamp hours out of this one, and only about 137 out of this one. So yeah, the Camkong batteries, they have definitely seemed to develop some internal resistance, and they don't really seem to like big loads. Now again, the R2 battery, I think the battery itself would have been just fine, but the protection circuit on this one is just very, very oversensitive. As long as I don't have any issues with the camera, fine. It's just wow. Yeah, we'll let this continue on. We'll try the R2 battery one more time. Not sure what the deal is with it. Let's try something here. Well, crap, I just canceled the freaking thing. Alright, so we were at, pull that out. Okay, so, we were at 500 milliamp hours on this one before, so we'll just have to add the results together once this completes. So yeah, 3.73 roughly. I'll pop this one back in. Yeah, what I was trying to do, I was trying to select the certain slot, and I was going to try charging it. There. Let's briefly charge it for a sec. See if we can figure out what's going on with that protection board. So it's sitting at 4.13. And the idea was to try to use the resting voltages as a discharge reference. So I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel the charge on this one, and we'll go back to 1 amp. And we'll see what happens. See if it cuts out again. Yeah, it leaves the chat every time. Let's try let's try 300 milliamps. Seems to be working okay now. So I think it's safe to say that the actual current draw that the camera demands is roughly in the neighborhood of 300 milliamps. So my testing of 1 amp is definitely a little bit more demanding than just 300 milliamps. But then again, we look and we see the D2 cell is holding in just fine. We're still at 3.7 volts. We're at 562 milliamp hours now. about, I think, 33 minutes in. I think it was 30 minutes and 500 milliamp hours before. So we'll just let this run and update you on the results. Okay, so the D2 battery has finished up, and we have a total of around 836 milliamp hours pulled from it at 1 amp discharge. So I don't think that's too awful bad given the age of the battery. It's about 2 years old and has seen many cycles. So I should mention, I should show you, it's sitting at 3.23 volts. And of course you may remember how these jumped way up to 3.9, 3.8 after they finish discharging. So you can see the rebound on this one was not a whole lot. So I'd say that's an indication of a decently performing battery. So we're going to let this one finish up. In the meantime, I'm going to charge up these two, because I'm sure these are not going to take much to charge back up. Okay, so now this battery has discharged, and this one's charged up. Let's see what we got. So we pulled over 850 milliamp hours out of this pack here, and just 200 milliamp hours pulled, or excuse me, charged into this one. That's pathetic. That is pathetic. Okay, everybody, so now I'm recharging these two batteries, and so this is the R2 battery. This was the one that was that the protection circuit was tripping out on overcurrent earlier when I was trying to draw 500 milliamps, 700 milliamps, and 1000 milliamps from. It's funny to note because I'm giving it a full amp at charge and it's not cutting out. That's weird. So we'll let these charge up and then we'll do a test in the cameras between the Camkong battery and the stock battery came with the cameras to see how they perform. Okay, so the batteries have finished charging, and let's see how much went into them. There's your resting voltages. 883 milliamp hours in this one, but the other one just 99 milliamp hours. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So we're going to put these two onto my two cameras and let them run and see how long the cameras record for. I have a feeling I may be able to go through both of these in the same amount of time or less that the this one here would last. So I was going to do it. And before I actually do that, let me go ahead and pop these two batteries in. I think, yeah, this one was already fully charged. So let me let's see here. This one there needs to charge though. So we're going to charge it up and see how much we can put in it. Okay, so it's going to load in a memory card into each camera. And we're going to pop a battery into each one. So the Runme R2 will be getting the factory battery. And the DBPower D2 will be getting one of the Camkong batteries. If we manage to get it in there. There we are. And we're going to start them up. Go ahead and set this one to 30 FPS, 1080p. Okay, you see right away the D2, the battery indicator is already starting to drop. I ain't started recording yet, so it's going to start recording. Okay, so both cameras are recording. Yeah, we'll see how long they last. Okay, so the display is on these go to sleep after 1 minute. So let's go ahead and tap the shutter button up top on both and turn the screens on. You see where just at a little over 11 minutes in, you can see this battery's already, this camera's already showing dead battery. Yeah guys, look, just 11-12 minutes in, this is starting to show a little bit of consumption. So, as I mentioned, I think I think the Camkong batteries have gotten so bad off that they're not even doing halfway as good as the original DBPower battery, or a Runme battery, whatever you want to call it. Then actually, these cameras were made by a generic company out of China. So let's continue on here. We'll be finishing up here probably any moment now. Okay, guys, so the DBPower D2 just left the chat at right about 23 minutes in. You can see the R2 still shows plenty of battery. So we'll go ahead and swap out the battery in this one. And I can say these cameras, they get pretty warm when they're just sitting there running. And it doesn't help that the way these cameras are put together, the heat from well, I can't say this battery is super hot, but part of that is because it's almost like these cameras, the microprocessor is like right next to where the battery is, so this dumps the heat into the battery. But this whole entire battery pack is definitely warm. About 45 degrees Celsius. So we'll go ahead and swap out the pack, put this other pack in, and we'll see how long this one runs for. I'm sure it also won't be all that long either. You can see already this other pack is already showing not full. Meanwhile, if I pop this other battery onto the charger, we'll see what the voltage is. 3.79. So we'll let these two continue running, and we'll see how long this one lasts. And again, I'm sure it won't be all that long. The D2 battery has finished charging up, and it took 873 milliamp hours, and an hour and 20 minutes to charge. Okay, everybody, so I got a little sidetracked the other day when I was shooting the videos for this battery comparison. So, the DBPower D2 got the Camkong batteries, whereas the Runme R2 had gotten the factory batteries that came with the camera. I think I ran just one battery through the Runme R2. So we'll go ahead and get our times. So first we'll do the, which one I do? First we'll do the Runme R2. So we'll get an idea of exactly how long its battery lasted. So as you recall, just one cycle of the Runme R2's factory battery significantly outlasted both of the Camkong batteries together. That's how bad they've got. Okay, so here is the memory card from the Runme R2. And it's funny, it looks like I still had some, yeah, I still actually had some files on there from a previous storm video. I don't think I'm going to need those anymore. So what this thing does is every, let's see, every about 33 minutes or so, it just starts a new file. So what we'll do is highlight them all, select properties. So we got an hour, 34 minutes, and 30 seconds. So we're going to put that to the side. And go ahead and pull out this card and put the one from the DBPower D2 in. And let's go ahead and swap it out for the other one. And of course my card reader does have an activity light, so I can tell when it's accessing the card and when it's not accessing the card. It's nice when your card reader has a built-in micro SD card slot. You don't have to use a little adapter. Both the Plexi and the Mid-Tower Lux have this. The key thing is you gotta get it lined up just right with this one. There we are. And you can see look, there's definitely not as much left, but then again, the other card also had some storm footage on it too. Now you can see there's just two clips here, and these aren't cumulative. These are two separate clips. Remember, the first battery ran out in a short amount of time, and I swapped it for the other one, and it didn't. I don't think it lasted as long. So 25 minutes. And 23 minutes. Yeah, that's great. So we're just going to pull up the details on that one. Pull up the details on this one if it will do it. Come on. Properties. Oh well. Let me see here. I see what's going on. Apparently, it's got the same file name. So, this one here, of course, this was the cumulative run time of the Runme R2. Let me just call this one 2. That'll help resolve that name confusion. There. So here are the two different cycles from the two different Camkong batteries. Got 25 minutes out of one, 23 minutes out of the other. whereas the Runme R2 stock battery did 1 hour and 34 minutes and 30 seconds. So about 26 minutes from the first Camkong battery, in 23 minutes out of the second one, 1 hour and 34 minutes and 30 seconds out of the Runme R2. Now, I don't think I tested the DBPower D2's stock battery, but it's pretty safe to say that it would have been really close, because they still seem to, despite the D2 battery being a little bit older, it still seems to be performing pretty well as far as runtime goes. So yeah, the Camkong batteries, they were great at first. I mean, they were decent at first, but they just didn't hold up. And the charger, oh, forget about the charger. The charger's a piece of crap. So what I'll probably end up doing is eventually I'll end up buying some more spare batteries for these two little action cams. That way I have extra batteries on hand. So yeah, the Camkong batteries, if you see them on Amazon, which are still there, by the way, I just left a 3-star review based on the fact that they were great at first and they just didn't hold up. If you see them on Amazon, just look for something else, because these, in comparison to the factory batteries that came with the DBPower D2 and Runme R2, they just didn't hold up. These, meanwhile, are still performing practically like new. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget, there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.